We're going to talk about scams and scam artists. Interestingly enough, the only criminals that we refer to as artists are scam artists, and they are always taking advantage of what has the public concerned or interested. They have a knowledge of psychology that Freud would have envied, and they take advantage of every emotion and manipulate it to their needs. Fear and greed certainly are primary. If there's one lesson for avoiding scams, I would say, remember my motto, trust me. You can't trust anyone. And that's part of it. You really have to be so careful. And at times like this, there are a wide variety of scams that appeal to us because we want information about the coronavirus. There are people that want products that may help them. There are other people that are looking to see this as a financial opportunity. Do want to do a bit of a shameless plug of my blog, which is www.scamicide.com. And Scamicide is a blog I do. There's no charge, and you can even sign up for free emails from it every day. And every day I provide a new scam of the day with the latest scams and what you can do about them. And actually we've added a whole new page devoted exclusively to coronavirus scams. So if you're looking for information about that, you can go there, and it's really easy. So it's www.scamicide, scamicide.com. All right, I think I want to start off with perhaps one of the most prominent concerns in regard to the coronavirus and finances, and that is the relief checks that will be coming out, the funds that will be sent to you as part of the recent stimulus package. The biggest thing to know is the scammers are already out there, and they're contacting people by email, by text message, by phone, and they're telling them about they need to provide personal information in order to get their funds. You may get a phone call, and if you look at your caller ID, it may say IRS, it may say Treasury Department. And this is a very simple scam technique called spoofing, where your caller ID can be tricked and manipulated to appear to come from whomever they want it to appear. So you can't trust it. Whenever you get a phone call, a text message, or an email, you really can't be sure as to who is really contacting you, which is why you can't provide personal information in response unless you've actually confirmed that it is indeed accurate. So here's the thing: how are the funds going to be sent to you? And yet there are different levels as far as how much you would qualify for. The more income you make, the less you would get, and that's what it's based on. It is based on they're looking at your 2019 federal income tax return. If you, like me, have not filed your 2019 federal income tax return, they will go to your 2018 income tax return. And they'll look at, if they're going to send you a check, they will see how you got your refund sent to you previously. So if you had it electronically sent to a bank account and you already provided the IRS with that information, that is where your funds will be sent electronically. You do not have to register in any fashion or provide any personal information to anyone from the government, and they will not be contacting you about this. So if you didn't use a bank account to have your refund wired in, if you had your check mailed, then you can have your check will be mailed to you. It'll be a little bit slower, but it'll still come to you at the same address you have for your income tax return. Just in the last few days, the federal government indicated that they will be having a website where if people do want to have their funds sent into electronically into a bank account, that you can do that if you had used just the mail having sent you a check previously. And we'll provide the website on that on Scamicide. And that's also, getting into it, one of the things, people are looking for all kinds of information about the coronavirus, COVID-19, and information upon which they can rely. So one of the issues is, where can you go for not just good information, but safe information? And, quite frankly, yes, there's the legitimate news media. I pretty much, for the coronavirus, stick to the World Health Organization, WHO, or the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control. So here's the thing with that. There have been emails coming to people, phishing emails, or that will appear as if they're coming from the World Health Organization or the Centers for Disease Control, and they'll have a link. They'll have a link on there where you can download some helpful and important, sometimes even critical, information. Go back to my trust me, you can't trust anyone, because the bottom line is the CDC and WHO are not contacting people by email or text message or phone to provide this information. You can quite readily go to their websites and get all the good information you want. But what they're doing with these scammers are doing is they're counterfeiting logos. So I got one and saw one, I posted up on Scamicide that appeared to come from the World Health Organization. And very often, a lot of scams are international in nature. So we often may get some that appear to be coming from, say, the World Health Organization, but the English and the grammar aren't really very good. And it's because often these scams may be originating in a country where English is not the primary language. The particular phishing email, and phishing luring you in to click on a link, and that link will download malware onto your computer. You want to avoid that by just never clicking on a link unless you're absolutely sure. And the thing is, you really can't, it is so easy to make to steal a logo, to counterfeit an email, to make it look legit. Before I taught at Bentley, and I've been at Bentley for 20 years, I also taught in the state prison system. And some of my old students in the state prison system, who were the con men of old, today they decry the fact that they said when they were counterfeiters, when they were scam artists, it took more talent. Now it's a relatively simple and easy thing for scammers to counterfeit a phishing email and even get the malware that you will download by clicking on those links. And here's the thing. What about if you've got good security software? Are you protected? And the answer, unfortunately, is no. You're protected somewhat, but we have what are called zero-day defects. Zero-day defects are the latest vulnerabilities that you will find that occur in various kinds of software. And so the security software companies are always at least a month behind the latest zero-day defects. So you may have the best security software, and yet if you click on that link, it may be a zero-day defect that will download ransomware, encrypting all of your data and threatening to destroy it unless you pay them a ransom. Or it may be keystroke logging malware that will go through your computer, get all of your personal information, your social security number, your bank accounts, passwords, and use that to make you a victim of identity theft. So first of all, it's important to have security software. It is important, though, to know that you can't entirely rely upon it. And so you still have to do your own diligence. The other thing is update. A lot of people become victims of malware because they have not updated their security software. And so when you do get updates for all of the programs that you have, it's really important to update and download those right away. The major Equifax data breach that affected 147 million of us, including myself, was due to Equifax's negligence. Equifax used a type of software called Apache, and this Apache software had issued a software update, a security update, and yet the people at Equifax didn't get around didn't get around to downloading that, even though the software patch was available, and so people were unnecessarily harmed with this. So it's when you're looking at that phishing email, again, you don't click on links, you don't download attachments unless you absolutely confirmed. And recognize that indeed the World Health Organization and the CDC are not going to be sending you emails or text messages. You also can look at the email, the address from which it's being sent, because sometimes you can see right away that it isn't coming from the World Health Organization. It isn't coming from the IRS. It isn't coming from some legitimate organization. And sometimes it will be a name for an address that just looks like it's an individual person. And it can be, because one of the ways that the malware is distributed by the cyber criminals is through botnets. Botnets are what we call networks of zombie computers. Your computer may be infected and be a part of a botnet being used to send out these types of phishing and spear phishing emails. There was also, there's people trying to make a buck off of this. And an interesting thing that the Securities and Exchange Commission was warning people about quite early in the pandemic is a modern version of what's called pump and dump. And this is an old security scam. It deals with thinly traded, lowly capitalized companies, penny stocks, they're sometimes called. And what the bad guys do is they will buy the stocks in these companies. And they're legitimate companies. These companies aren't even participating in the fraud. They don't even know it's happening. They're another victim. So the bad guys find the company. They buy up the stock at its real price. And then they start sending out, and it can be through emails, it can be through text messages, it can be through social media, and it's contacting people with this inside information that this company is about to come out with a cure for the coronavirus or a treatment for the coronavirus. And so obviously anyone who can come up with that is going to make a lot of money. So people fall for this scam. They don't do their homework. They don't check out the company. They trust an email coming to them out of the blue or from social media, even if it appears to come from someone that they know. And often it does, but they've been conned by someone else. So they buy the stock. As more people fall for this scam and build the stock price up, when it gets to a nice high target price, the scammers sell out. So they make their profit, and eventually, soon thereafter, you'll find the truth becomes known, and suddenly the stock plummets in price. One of the things I always found interesting, because the pump and dump scam's been with us for a long time, and there was one scam, and it involved Ukrainian hackers working with American stockbrokers. So Russia and Ukraine and the United States, we can all work together. And what these Ukrainian hackers did was they hacked into JP Morgan about 6 years ago, JP Morgan Chase. And they got thousands and thousands and thousands of email addresses. And I remember at the time I was being interviewed about this particular data breach. And there was no bank account numbers. There were no passwords. It was primarily email addresses. And it was just curious as to what they were doing. Well, what they were doing was a pump and dump. And so the Ukrainian hackers hacked into JP Morgan Chase, gave the email addresses to the American stockbrokers, and they sent out pump and dump letters. They pulled a major pump and dump scam. And eventually, the hackers and the stockbrokers were convicted. And during the trial, it was very interesting. There was one Ukrainian hacker talking to a Russian hacker. And he posed the interesting question. He said, why would Americans buy stock based on an anonymous tip that they got? And the Russian said, Americans buy stock like we drink vodka. So the bottom line is we do have to do our homework. First of all, insider information, inside trading is illegal in any event, but why would you trust just a random communication that tells you that a particular stock is doing well? So beware of the pump and dump. Another one is a lot of phony coronavirus cures. Alex Jones, the media personality who's had his more than his share of scams and conspiracies and worthless products that he sells and sends out, was one of a number of companies that received cease and desist letters from the Federal Trade Commission and the Food and Drug Administration. And they were indicating Jones did take it down, but a lot of them had these products that they are saying will treat the coronavirus. There are not any treatments out there at the moment. There's nothing that will do it. So you've got to be wary of any of those products. And then there are people that are trying to be good, trying to help out our fellow man and give to charities. And there are a number of charities that are helping people, because there's a lot of people that do need help at this time with the coronavirus. You may even get a phone call. Now, even if you are on the federal do not call list, and I really do recommend for everybody, go on the federal do not call list. It will not stop robocalls. It will not stop the scammers. However, if someone does call you and for a business matter, and you're on the federal do not call list, you already know they're breaking the law because they're not honoring the federal do not call list, so you know it's a scam. But one of the exceptions of callers that can make calls to you, even if you're on the federal do not call list, are charities. But once again, trust me, you can't trust anyone. When you get that phone call from a charity, or you get an email from a charity, or a text message from a charity, you can't be sure it's really from that charity. It may be a phony charity set up, or it may be a scammer using the name of a legitimate charity. So what do? If you are charitably inclined, I suggest you go to a site called charitynavigator.org. Terrific site, free site, and you'll find out a couple of things there. First of all, you can find out if indeed the charity that's contacted you is legitimate, and where you can contact them if you want to make a gift. The other thing you'll find out is how much of the money that you are giving to a legitimate charity, how much of that is going to actually go to the legitimate charity for its charitable purposes, and how much will be paid and used up for administrative costs and their salaries. So you'll be able to see which charities are going to work best for you. Another big one is, there are a lot of phony coronavirus websites. They're infected with malware. One of the best websites that I've been looking at out there is the interactive map that was created by Johns Hopkins University. You've probably seen it on the news as well. Dark map with an indication with red of all of the places around the world that the coronavirus is, and how many cases there are, and it's constantly updated, and it's a terrific site. There have been scammers that are sending out emails, again, phishing emails, that purport to link you to this Johns Hopkins site. And if you click on the link to go to the Johns Hopkins site, it will look like it's taking you to the Johns Hopkins site, but instead it is taking you to a bogus phony site that merely by going to that website, you don't even have to click on anything there, you will be downloading malware. And this is one of the things you also have to be careful about. When you go in a search engine search, Google, on any of the other search engines, just because something appears high in a search list doesn't mean it's legit. Quite often what it can mean is that you've got a very, very adept scammer who is able to manipulate the algorithms used by Google and Bing and others to put their phony website up there. And that's the problem. Some of these websites, certainly some you have to click on links in there in order to download the malware, but in others, merely by going to the infected website, you're going to have a problem. So it's a difficult thing. Another thing we've been seeing are door-to-door people from the CDC. They come, they look like they're in hazmat suits, and they're offering tests. However, the CDC is not going door to door. No one is going door to door from any health organization offering tests. Even I saw as a report this past weekend in Louisville, Kentucky, and also other places around the country, the scammers were setting up drive-through testing sites, charging people $250 to get tested for the coronavirus. The thing is, first of all, under the stimulus package, there will be no charges for tests for the coronavirus. And so, you know, right away it's a scam, but people fall for it. And here again, you got to trust the really good information. So what we put up on scamicide.com when we were using this as one of our scams of the day, and since I've been doing scamicide.com, we've had over 3,300 individual scams of the day. We have the links to the World Health Organization and other links to tell you exactly where you can go in your particular state and municipality to get a test if you need one. There's also phony coronavirus grant scams, and these have been coming largely through social media. It is a relatively easy thing to hack into someone's social media. And the problem there is, once you've hacked into someone's social media, you may get contacted by a friend of yours on from Facebook or Instagram or whatever, and you trust them. You know, you're getting a message from them. And one of the common ones is about grants that the federal government is giving out in as much as $150,000 to individuals to help with the coronavirus pandemic. Now, first of all, grants are usually for public projects of some kind. You don't have to pay a fee to apply for a grant, but these phony grants that are coming through social media, people are paying fees and they're not getting anything. So again, trust me, you can't trust anyone. We've got the federal government giving benefits to people, but there's also been scams for phony stimulus checks coming from companies. And one I saw that came out in social media, in emails, and also text messages, was one from Costco. And it was, we here at Costco want to thank all of our loyal customers. And so we're providing $150 checks, stimulus checks to everyone, or $150 coupons and gift certificates. Again, you're not getting anything like that. They're either stealing personal information from you when you try and qualify for it, and use that information to make you a victim of identity theft, or you actually download malware. So what do you do? And this actually is a lesson to remember, even when we're not talking coronavirus, but there are a lot of great coupons that turn up online, and a lot of them come through social media, and a lot of them are just too damn good to be true. So how do you know when it's too good to be true and when it's not? Again, the logos can look good, the coupons can look great, and really, frankly, what I do is I don't even try and distinguish whether they're good or not. If you want to check on a coupon, a promotion for a company, go to the company's own website. You will find every coupon that you can get, every promotion will be there. You can't take the risk. You just can't trust what you're going to find when you click on a link of a coupon anywhere else. A lot of us are working from home. And we're going to have to be really, really careful about this, because the scammers are not only looking to get at us, they're looking to get at our companies through us, through networked computers. So some good hygiene when you're working from home. We love our kids. We love our grandkids. Don't let them on your computer that you're going to be using for business. They may be downloading malware, ransomware, keystroke logging programs. Get the kids their own computer and don't network it with yours. Use a virtual private network for communications that you use. Use dual factor authentication so that even if someone manages to get your password, they're not going to be able to access the accounts that you're using. And one of the big ones is our routers. You know, a lot of people don't think much about our routers, and yet our routers are a real both key to your security and a great vulnerability. The FBI issued a major warning a few months ago about flaws in routers and routers being attacked. And remember, routers are how all of our devices connect through the internet. And so if you have well, any kind of internet connected device, it can be your smart TV, it can be Alexa, it can be anything. It's going through your router. And a lot of people don't change the default passwords on their routers. A lot of people are using older routers that don't automatically update for security or provide encryption. So you want to make sure that your router is protected because it is a real vulnerable place. So if I've scared the hell out of you, I want to kind of finish this part of the presentation, and I'll open it up to questions in a few moments by recounting a story about when I was teaching at Walpole Prison. One of my students was serving 2 consecutive life sentences, which means that when he died, he would start his 2nd life sentence. And I said to him, I said, oh, you know, I was always very curious about that. I said, you know, how do you do that? He said, I was curious too. And when I got sentenced, and remember, so 2 consecutive life sentence means you serve your life sentence, you die, you start your next life sentence. So my student said, he yelled up at the judge, how do you expect me to do 2 consecutive life sentences? He said, the judge leaned forward and said, just do the best you can. So we've got a lot of things that are threatening us. And scams related to the coronavirus are certainly a major threat. But by doing the best we can, we really can protect ourselves a lot. You don't click on phishing emails. You don't click on emails and links in text messages unless you're absolutely sure and have confirmed it. You always verify information. Be care of the websites you go to. You take these steps. You use good security software. Make sure you're using dual factor authentication and good passwords and good security questions, and you'll be okay. All right, we can open it up now to questions if you wish.
Great. We'll start with some of the questions that you've already submitted as attendees. But what we also encourage you to do is if any of what Professor Weisman didn't scare you, made you have some questions, feel free to go ahead and put them in the Q&A box and we'll address them live now. So we'll get started. You talked most recently really about this new work environment being at home. And David Danielli of Class of '96 asks, we've seen some Zoom meetings get hacked. Are individual Zoom users at risk of having their computers hacked in this fashion?
You know, I think, you know, Mark Twain said the reports of my death have been grossly exaggerated. And although Zoom has zoomed up with the number of uses, and we've learned more about vulnerabilities within Zoom, both as far as privacy and as a way of getting to hack your computer, they have been somewhat overstated, and Zoom is working on them. But that's not to say that there certainly are some threats that are present. Signal is a new type of, it's an app that can be used for such video conferencing that may be even better. Some people are using Skype as well. Anything can be hacked. I do know in Zoom, it was a provision in the chat feature that was allowing the hacking. But by and large, most of it was accessing into the information contained in the Zoom meeting. So the threat, although significant, isn't such that I would feel uncomfortable using Zoom.
Great, since we're using Zoom today, that's always helpful. Another question is about programs that you can have on your computer. So what do you, Norm, Shane, somebody who's asking this question live, what do you recommend for programs to either clean up or prevent malware on devices?
Yeah, everybody should have them. And there are free versions and there are paid versions. And as you can expect, the paid versions are going to provide more security. However, quite frankly, for most of us, I think many of the free versions will do the job. I use a company, and I don't represent any of these companies, although I have worked for Symantec. But I use Malwarebytes. Kaspersky is another good one. Avast, AVG, Bitdefender. There really are a lot of them. Frankly, a good place to go is every year online PC Magazine does evaluations and ratings of all of these different security software programs. And that's a good place to go to check out what might be the best for you.
Great. Another question comes from a pre-submitted question, Ellie Vogel, MBA 01, and another master's in 03. What is the best way to protect a small business from cybersecurity, and what kind of defense mechanisms should be in place?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, because small businesses they're a big target for cybersecurity attacks. And I saw some statistics just recently that 50% of the small businesses that get hacked and suffer a data breach and an attack go out of business within 6 months. So it's serious stuff. I think you start off with, you do want to have a security professional help you with this. It's worth it. You also want to consider getting cyber insurance, which will also help. But then you get to good firewalls, updated security software, and you put in a whole culture of security, and you train your people, because your people are always your best asset and your greatest vulnerability. This is the kind of thing where spear phishing of people at their computer desks, at their computers, where they download malware is a real problem. So you don't want them, quite frankly, a lot of porn is watched at work, and a lot of porn is infected with malware. And so you have to let your employees know not to be going on to play games, to view sites that aren't related to business. And this is something where major companies have fallen because of this. So employee training is huge. Encrypting all data. One of the things when years ago when Sony had their major data breach, these are the marks on my tongue from biting it when I was listening to the CEO say, no one could have possibly defended against this kind of an attack. Well, not so fast. First of all, they used spear phishing to get into one particular employee's computer, and then there were various aspects of Sony's data that were protected by passwords, and they had a large folder entitled passwords. And so all the hacker had to do was go to the password folder and open it. So you want to encrypt. You don't want unauthorized devices attached to any of your office computers. And there was an interesting test that the federal government did with its employees. They took a portable hard drive, a little thumbnail disk, and they left it in a parking lot of one of the federal buildings. And about 60% of the people who saw it and picked it up put it into their computers at work, plugged it in, and it would have downloaded malware. The best was it got up to anywhere between 70 and 80% when they put a picture of a bird on the portable hard drive. Okay, the bird was the American eagle, so it looked official. But the bottom line is, trust me, you can't trust anyone. So you want to make sure that you're using proper software. And there's also a type of software that I don't know why it isn't used more often, called whitelisting software. Most security software is blacklisting, and blacklisting software recognizes certain malware, and it won't let it be installed. But for those new 0-day defects for which there's no defense, they're going to, if you click on the link, they're going to be downloaded. Whitelisting software will not allow anything to be downloaded onto your computer unless it has been pre-approved. And this is something I think more companies should do. More use of dual-factor authentication. This is something where even if people have had their password hacked, stolen, now they're still not going to be vulnerable if they use dual-factor authentication. And this is one of these things where a good password protocol is too many people use the same password for all of their accounts. And so what happens is if you go to, if your password becomes known through a data breach, all of a sudden all of your accounts are vulnerable. And so maybe my password at Amazon suffered a security lapse, a breach, but now my bank account could also be in danger. So you want to use strong security passwords. You also want to use dual-factor authentication when possible, and your security question, because what happens if you can't remember your password? Well, you answer your security question. A good example of the problems that can occur here was like with Sarah Palin. Sarah Palin's email account was hacked. And how was it hacked? The hacker answered her security question: where did I meet my husband? And the answer was, he went to Wikipedia, found it was Wasilla High School, boom, took over her account. Now, we may think, okay, I'm not famous, I'm not a celebrity, no one's going to be able to get my information from Wikipedia. Well, we put the information out there. That's my dog, whatever your dog's name is up on your social media. Your mother's maiden name can be found anywhere. So there's all kinds of places to get the answers to common security questions. So here's a nice, easy cure. What's your mother's maiden name? Fire truck. Now, if you take something that nonsensical to answer any of these security questions, one, trust me, I know I said, trust me, you can't trust anyone, but you can trust me on this one. You will remember that your mother's maiden name was Fire Truck. And second, no hacker is ever going to be able to guess that. So a lot of the basics of security, you want to make sure that you're doing, and then particularly with small business, it's not a goal, it's a process, and it's one that you're always doing.
Thank you. Hopefully that helped all the small business owners out there. I know it certainly helped me. I'm going to be using Fire Truck. Another question that came in live is from Mark Solomon, and this is a good one for the age of Corona, all of us working from home. Do you have any knowledge relating to phony online job opportunities that result in online interviews that can become potential scams? Are these happening?
Yeah, online job opportunities are a really prime area for scammers these days. And one of the reasons is, if let's say you go through a, maybe you're going even through one of the big sites, a monster.com or something else. Remember, they cannot perfectly screen everything. So you have to be a bit skeptical. The other real danger is, if you are dealing online with for a job, ultimately, when you get hired, you're going to have to provide your social security number because they will need it for your W-2. So there is that risk because it can look entirely legitimate. And so how are you going to be able to tell whether it's legitimate or not? You can't, which is why what you do before you provide any personal information, anything that could be used to make you a victim of identity theft, you go to the HR department directly of the company that appears to be interviewing you. And there you can find out, first of all, if those interviews are legitimate and if they're hiring. So it's too hard to find out on your own. So if you are interviewing for a job or doing something, looking for a job online, don't give out any personal information until you've independently confirmed that it is legit.
Great. The next question comes from Migdalia Ortiz, class of '88. How safe and secure is the cloud? And is the cloud capable to handle demand?
Good, great questions. But what would I expect from, from Bentley alums? Of course. The interesting thing with the cloud is, I'm thinking we're going to go higher than the clouds. We're going to go into the stars, and we're going to quote Shakespeare about the fault's not in the stars, the fault's in ourselves. The cloud can be pretty secure, but here's your but. Jennifer Lawrence, a couple of years ago, maybe more than a couple of years ago, was one of a number of celebrities whose accounts in the cloud was hacked into. And she at first was very, very upset with her iCloud account and Apple because they had been hacked. It wasn't until she found out the problem, well, in this case, it was the star, it was Jennifer Lawrence. The problem was with her. She got an email. She got an email from Apple confirming your password. And she gave the password for her cloud account. Now, here's the problem. Obviously, people will tend to fall for that kind of thing. In your cloud accounts and in every account you can use dual factor authentication. And so if indeed you have a cloud account, make sure that you have dual factor authentication. So the cloud is fairly secure. Nothing is foolproof. Never underestimate the power of a fool. But the biggest manner by which cloud accounts have been hacked is by socially engineered spear phishing emails and text messages luring people to turn over their passwords. So cloud's pretty safe, and we often are the weakest link.
Okay, well, that's good and bad news, I suppose. We have a couple of questions, one pre-submitted and one just now live, about which are more vulnerable, so Android versus Apple, or are there, Daniel Bouchard asks, which operating systems seem to have more attacks than others?
I'm going to give you a different answer than what I would have given you many years ago, because for many years, the Windows operating system was more hacked than Apple, and iPhones were less hacked than Android phones. But now it's an equal opportunity hacker, because right now the hackers are focusing their attention on all of these platforms. Interesting thing too is to look at the business model. At one time, Interpol, the International Law Enforcement Agency, once estimated that there were only about 100 cybersecurity criminal geniuses in the world who would create the malware and the delivery systems and the botnets and all of this. But what they would do is, rather than work out this themselves, they go on the dark web, that part of the internet where bad guys go to buy and sell goods and services, and they would set up websites, and fascinating, by which they would buy and sell goods and provide tech support. They would give bonuses to buyers who bought in bulk. I mean, it looked like a regular business. One of the famous ones I saw was called Joker's Stash. And they had all kinds of benefits to people that used it a lot, and they provided great tech support. But here's the thing. Right now, you can have very much less sophisticated cyber criminals who are able to get the software and the tech assistance that they need from these dark websites. And so the cyber crimes can be done by anybody, even if they're not a cyber criminal genius.
Well, I think I have one last question to end on that will give us some final advice, hopefully. Ralph Reckes, class of '68, asks, we've learned so much from your talk today, but who should we be reporting these frauds or scams to?
Okay, yeah, and it's a great thing. The primary place, if it is a securities related scam, you want to report it to the SEC. However, for just about all other scams, the place to go is the Federal Trade Commission, your local police. And here's the thing: if you have become a victim of identity theft in particular, you want to report it to your local police. Are your local police going to be able to do anything about it? No. However, you will need that police report to help you protect yourself, to show that charges that may have been made against you were done by an identity thief. But reporting to the Federal Trade Commission is the best thing you can do. Again, kind of my self-serving, if you go to scamicide.com, we've got a number of different sections there, and one of them is if you're a victim of a scam, if you're a victim of identity theft, what do you do? Where do you go? We also have the Federal Trade Commission has, in regard to some scams, they will have programs by which they will return funds that have been gotten due to lawsuits against the scammers. They'll return funds to victims. And so we have a section there for FTC scam refunds. So FTC is a good place to go for information. Again, blindly self-promoting, scamicide.com is a good place to go, and it's free. But the FTC is the best place.
Great. Well, thank you so much. For everyone that's on the call today, we'll just let you know a recording of this will be sent around after the fact, as well as a link out to Professor Steve Weisman's website, scamicide.com, so you can check it all out yourself if you have additional questions. We thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you on the next virtual event. Thank you.